What's going on, everybody? Thanks for coming back to my channel. Thank you for subscribing if you have subscribed, and for those of you who have not and you've been ninja watching this whole time, because I do get some people who make plenty of comments on my channels who are not subscribed. Yes, you can see that stuff as a content creator. You can see the analytics and stuff like that. So if you keep coming back making comments, good or bad, at least subscribe. Either way, so today's topic, like you see on the thumbnail, you saw the title, is why are black people misrepresented, or why aren't as many black people, or however I'm going to phrase this, in special operations. Now, this may be a two-part series because I don't want to lose people and get long-winded and just start rambling about all kinds of stuff. Now, I don't want it to be that long, but it's probably going to be that long, so I'm going to break it up in probably two parts. So this is going to be part one. And for the purpose of this video, I'm going to only speak about black people, although Asian Americans, Latin Americans, and other different groups, Pacific Islanders, are also not in special operations, probably at the same rate, if not more, than black people. But being that I am a black man, I'm going to specifically speak to black people. It does not mean this is only for black people. It's mainly the questions I get that are almost geared towards black people. And this is also going to be more on the enlisted side, considering that 88% of the military, 88% of the military, I believe, is enlisted. So anybody in any group, majority are going to be enlisted. So let's just go ahead and talk about that. Also, another thing, special operations, special warfare, special forces, SOF are going to be synonymous. I'm going to use those terms interchangeably. Although they have differences, they also are very similar. There's times where special operations turns into special warfare, or special warfare turns into special force, based on however you want to look at it. We aren't all the same. We aren't, but we do work a lot with each other, and I'm going to explain some things for that. But so that is what is special operations. That's the first question I always get when people say, hey, I didn't know you guys were special operations. It's like, okay, well, just think about it. What is so special about that job, right? And everybody's job in the military has a specialty. We all have specialties. We all have MOSs, ratings, designators, things like that. So we all have a specialty, but that does not mean your job is by nature special. It doesn't mean it isn't special or isn't worth anything. So if you join the military and you want to be, jokingly for me, a TED, which is just a typical enlisted dude or dudette, that's fine. We still need you, right? I did not know that we had supply, admin. I know we had medical people and different things like that. I did not know that that was a military job prior to me joining. I thought everybody in the military was freaking, on the front line, shooting, rootin' tootin', all that crap. That is not the case at all.
Nope.
So I would say anybody in special operations, special warfare, special forces, special operations forces, which is what SOF means. Here are some things I actually jotted down, and I'm going to go over some stuff I talk about and give you my source or site for it or whatever. But anybody who receives special training. So boot camp is basic training, right? We all have basic level: Army, Navy, Marine, Air Force, Coast Guard, Space Force, whatever it may be. We all have basic training. That is pretty much going to give us the history of our branch, specifically rank structure, how to identify people's ranks, and pretty much how you can be an asset in that branch specifically. Basic, how to march, fold your clothes, initial gear issue, stuff like that. We all get that. That's basic training. That's why it's called that, basic training. Then we go on from there to go learn our job, our specialty. That does not mean we're all in special operations, though, because most of us don't even work in operations departments. You may work in a maintenance department or supply department, administrative department, medical department. Does not mean your job's not special. It's just not special operations. So, going back into that, so people who get advanced training, right? And I think that's another thing that we even call our schools in the Navy is A school. So once we go to basic training, then we go to A school or advanced schooling. However, it doesn't mean it is a special school or a special program. So special training, that's a big one. The training is not 2 weeks long. I know some people who go through advanced training and then they just go straight into a damn job. They're in the fleet on the carrier getting hit with big ass waves, 4 or 5 months after boot camp. And I'm like, damn, it took me 2.5 years almost to get to my fleet command after boot camp. or start a boot camp to the time I checked into my fleet command was almost 2.5 years. And that's how much student status I had to get to my point in my job. So yeah, nobody in special operations is going to show up completely green. You will in your community, but you won't in that branch. You may have half your enlistment or a third of your enlistment already chewed up in strictly training alone. So people who do special training, they also get special uniforms. You have different badges, berets, or covers, what we call it. You get special pins, warfare devices, which is similar to a badge. It could be patches, special uniforms. Like myself, I wear flight suits, flight gear, flight equipment, flight helmets. You also get special pays. I get paid to fly in an aircraft. I get paid to jump out of said aircraft. Other people get paid to work with demolition. They get paid to dive. Things that are inherently dangerous, you get a special pay for. Now, you may be a linguist and you can get special pay for that. And you can get put on special missions. But by and large, just because you get that special pay does not mean anything other than good, you can speak another language. And we need that. So I wanted to talk about that. That's typically when you can tell somebody has a special operations, special warfare, special force job, is when you are doing things like that. Did you get anything different issued to you? Gear or flight equipment, whatever it may be, fins, wetsuits, all these things issued to you in the capacity to do your job. So let's talk about that first. What is special operations? There are a couple websites that I've recently saw. I'm going to go ahead and talk about it. One of them is going to be from a website called Today's Military. And it says Special Forces, Intelligence, Combat, and Readiness. Okay, I have all of those things at some point in my old titles. And here it is right here. It says service branches, Army, Marine Corps, Navy, Air Force. I understand we're typically the 4 DOD branches, Coast Guard being not fully DOD. I get it. And Space Force, this is probably older. They didn't exist yet. It says work environment. So let's go ahead and talk about a special operations or special forces work environment. Because special force teams members must be prepared to go anywhere in the world, they train and all work in all climates, weather conditions, and settings. They may die from submarines or small underwater craft. Special force team members may also be exposed to harsh temperatures. Tell me about it. Often without protection during missions in enemy-controlled areas. Most of the time, however, they work and train on military bases, ships, or submarines. They left out aircraft here, but at the same time, that's fine. So a quick overview of that same website says special force team members implement, it doesn't say team, but either way, special force members implement unconventional operations by air, land, or sea during combat or peacetime as members of elite teams. These activities include offensive raids, demolitions, recon, search and rescue, and counterterrorism. There are many more to that, but this is what they're saying. In addition to their combat training, special force members often have specialized training in swimming, diving, parachuting, survival, emergency medicine, and foreign languages. So that's a big one right there that I wanted to talk about, are those things: swimming, diving, parachuting, survival training, emergency medicine. These are not basic level medicines and survival. It's always going to be an advanced and special tier level of it. There's nothing wrong with everybody else in the military. And let me just tell you right now, being a black man in any sort of special program or special operations group, it wasn't hard to do it physically. It was hard to do it culturally. And I'm going to get into that. This one says, once again, military training. All enlisted service members complete basic military training, which I said before, which includes time spent in a classroom and in the field and covers tactical and survival skills, physical training, military life and customs, and weapons training. Due to the wide variety of missions, special forces enlisted service members undergo some of the most intense and demanding physical and mental training in the world. That's a big one. A lot of people think everything about being special operations is strictly physical, when a lot of it has to do with your mentality, your mindset. Are you a quitter? How much quit do you have? Well, these selection processes for all the different phases test your level of quitness. Cool. They are trained swimmers, paratroopers, and survival experts, as well as trained in many forms of combat. Many forms, not all forms, many forms of combat. Special forces in the military will gain skills through classroom study, practices, exercise under simulated mission conditions, and OJT, which is on the job experience / job specific training content may include physical conditioning, parachuting, swimming, scuba diving, use of land warfare, weapons and comms, explosive handling and disposal, bomb and mine disposal. So these are just some of the things that people will say this area of expertise and training makes you by definition in special operations, bare minimum. Doesn't matter. I know people who have a rating or an MOS that does not necessarily warrant them to be in special operations. However, they have certain skills picked up along the way, and they've been on missions that were 100% specialized missions. That person was in special operations, although their job title doesn't really say it. So I'm going to get into a different thing for right now and talk about some of the other stuff. So now that we kind of know a little bit about what special operations is, I'm already almost 12 minutes into this video, and this is exactly why there's going to be a part 2 as to why black people are not really in it as much as we, I guess, would like to see based on politicians. So like I just said, we know what special operations is, all the things you have to do, and just getting into it, special operations to me, if I was to go ahead and explain it to a bunch of high school kids, it would be like the extreme sports and the extreme, levels of ESPN sports when you're watching it for the military. It's not just everybody in the military. It is a very small percentage of people in the military who will even have any sort of combat role. I believe over 60% of the military is in non-combat roles off the rip. Like should never see combat. That doesn't mean they don't. I'm just saying 60% of people will not ever even be in a combative role in the military. Most of them are support, maintenance, stuff like that, supply, logistics, whatever you want to call it. And 40% have a combat role, but it's not direct combat all the time. It may be indirect combat. It could be combat support. It could be something like that. And then once you actually deploy of that 40% who even have a combat role, maybe only 20 of them will even ever see combat of any sort. And that may just be on the ground. They may not have ever fired a freaking bullet, but they've saw it or they've seen it. And of course it gets even smaller of people who actually are in contact. And that's just something to think about, right? So don't think that, I'll tell you right now, if you watch the Navy commercials and all the commercials for all the branches of joining the military, they don't show nothing other than, for me, that I can remember, they don't really show anything other than special operations of some sort. They have to. That's the excitement part. That's what gets everybody out of their seat and says, yeah, I want to do that. You join the military and you do something completely opposite. And even in those fields, it's not, you don't take a 21-year career like mine and then, shrink it down to a 30-second video and say, this is all I've done for the last 21 and a half years. So once again, even you, if you're watching this video, black, white, male, female, Asian, whatever, gay, straight, Christian, atheist, I don't care. If you're questioning based on the title, right, of how come black people aren't in special operations or whatever the title is going to be, it's things like this. It does not mean black people don't genuinely care to do it, because there are some of us in it. We do make up a very, very small population in the military in general. Special operations is a smaller group. And then within that group, you're going to see that it's clearly dominated by white men. That does not mean it's bad at all. I don't think that at all. So let's get into some things right now. The very first thing you heard me talk about on some of the other things, talking about what special operations forces do, was swimming. And swimming is a big one that a lot of black people will instantly avoid. And that's not a physical thing. That is a cultural thing. So I want to talk about that. As a black guy, I have the title of a search and rescue swimmer. So people looked at me like, what? I don't know what, when they saw me on the ship. I think at the time there was 6 of us at my first, Helo Squadron. There were 6 of us as black rescue swimmers, to include our leading chief petty officer. So the most senior enlisted guy in my job was black. And then I was the newest check-in. I was also black. So he was an E8 or senior chief in the Navy, and I was a E4, a 3rd class petty officer in the Navy. And we both shared the same amount of melanin in our skin and certain cultural backgrounds, but we both also shared that little brotherhood of being in a search and rescue community. So people thought I graduated from SAR school because I grew up in San Diego, and San Diego is known for the beaches and all that other stuff, the Coronado Bridge, all that junk. I did not get in that water over there at all. I said that in a previous video. I didn't care about that. And as a matter of fact, that had no bearing on why I joined the military in the first place. That's another topic or another video. But so a lot of black people I do talk to, they say, oh man, I would have done special operations, or I would have done this. I hear a lot of people say what they would have done. And there's nothing wrong with that. But did you do anything to do that? Like, let me see your package. Let me see the chit that got denied by somebody. If you didn't even bother putting any of that stuff together, I don't want to hear you.
Nope.
Because that's just, I mean, anybody can say, oh, you know what? The reason I didn't go into this program is because of fill in the blank. So swimming, that's a big thing that black people culturally do not do. And the reason for it, when it comes to our mothers, unfortunately, a lot of black men are raised by single moms. So think about that. Don't discredit that fact. It's a fact. And most black women don't get their hair wet.
Nope.
So if they don't get their hair wet by taking us to the beach or the pool because they're not going to get in there, guess who else isn't going? That young man or that young girl. And it just keeps going on. It just keeps, the cycle never stops. So black people genuinely don't go do water sports. Some of us do. Many of us do not. So knowing that alone is part of special operations, we just avoid it altogether. And it doesn't mean that that person's not physically able to do half of the other things. It just means like, hey, look, sometimes your job will take you over water without a pool deck or a pool edge in sight or a buoy to grab hold of. You need to figure this out on your own. And if you can't do that, then this is not the program for you. Yeah. So one of the other things talking about this is patriotism is lacking within the black community. I hear it and see it all the time, not only from my own family and friends back at home, but even people I live around locally. I live in Virginia Beach right now. And, you know, I meet people at the gym and stuff like that, and they could care less about being anything, any sort of servant for America, whether that's community servant or big picture country servant, being a service member. The few people who are in the military that I know that are black, and I'm not saying I only know 5, but they still don't really even enjoy it. They're in the military because their parents or somebody were. They honestly have no patriotism, personal drive to do it. And knowing that you're in special operations, your life can be taken in simple as a training hop. Not just an actual mission, a training hop will take you out. And people are like, I'm not willing to die for a country that doesn't appreciate me. And a lot of people do feel that way. And I believe a lot of that may be based on ignorance personally. But I don't live everybody's life. I'm not going to say that police injustice isn't real, because it can be. And that does not help the situation, the way that we look at things politically. So that's a big one. So not much love for America. And if you don't love America, you most likely will not join the military of any branch. And even if you did, you're probably not going to go down the narrow tunnel to join any special operations, special force, or special warfare team or community. So yeah, that's that. Also, as a young black man, my heroes were not, and still, you know, I can remember this like yesterday, were not any service member whatsoever. I didn't know a single service member's name other than my father. And that sucks. And it doesn't mean that you're wrong. It just means that's not what we grow up learning. We didn't have SEALs to look up to, or we didn't have, you know, I mean, of course you may have a favorite character for G.I. Joe or Marvel or, you know, DC Comics. You may have favorite characters like that, but there were no real people to emulate in the black community. There was nobody that said, you know what, I want to be like Mike Murphy. Nope. Mike Murphy didn't exist in the black community. Now, some people know who he is now because technology and the internet, all that junk. But that was it. We wanted to aspire to be entertainers, athletes, rappers, which still falls into the entertainment category, but mainly actors and stuff like that. Or, unfortunately, thugs, drug dealers, and gang members. Those were the influence that a lot of black men grow up. And that's who they saw as successful. That's what the ladies were attracted to. That's where the money was at. That's where the status was at. And so that was those were, if you will, those were our special operators. Those were our tier 1 guys who we wanted to be just like. And as far as I'm concerned, the way that the NFL and the NBA, based on the ratios, they're still doing that. They're still dominated by black men. So I don't think that it's a recruitment issue. It's more, well, there is a recruitment issue, but it's the wrong recruiters. If I was to be a 16, 17-year-old black man, I'm in high school, and I was shown up, I had nothing but Green Berets, Navy SEALs, EOD techs, Delta, whoever, MARSOC, Raiders, and they all showed up at my high school. And they all looked the same. They were all white men, which is nothing wrong with that. That is just the majority of them. And they were all trying to recruit people. I naturally will not feel invited into that conversation. I just won't. So even if their job sounds cool, I'm not going to do it.
Nope.
I'm not saying show up with all black dudes either in the same capacity, but definitely if you want to have a diverse group of special operations or special forces, your recruitment should be the exact same. Have people from different communities in different flavors of skin tones, Asian Americans, Latin Americans, Black Americans, white Americans, whatever the other group of Americans, Native Americans. Everybody I said is in every special operations force, but we make up such small numbers that people never see us. They try to put it on movies now and see sitcoms, TV shows. They try and get a little bit of a blending in there. And that's fine. And I really do think it's great. But just naturally, that's one of the major reasons that we will not do something is because you need to recruit troops. And the only way to recruit somebody is to have some common ground. And if it's just that we're both American, that ain't going to be enough. I need you to be American and honestly, sometimes, and black. And see that, okay, you're not out here selling drugs. You're not out here only trying to rap about selling drugs. You're not out here trying to be as fast as you can and suck at school and then go to college on a scholarship, a full ride scholarship because you have athletic ability. And so not every black person is a goddamn genius.
Nope.
And not every black person is fast.
Nope.
Or the strongest, which is also other myths that people think that, that's all we can do. Earlier, I mentioned about SCORE just now. That's a big one. You have to test out. Now, once again, going back earlier when I said most black people are raised by females, that doesn't mean it's always like, oh, these girls suck. Moms suck at raising their boys. No, it doesn't. But not having a father figure in your life will detrimentally impact you as a male. Female as well. We call it daddy issues. People both have daddy issues, men and women. But those men are going to look to emulate somebody. We always do. And if it's not our fathers, it's the person on the street. It's our friend's older brother or older brother who may be in trouble. And it's not hard to see that most people do what their families and friends typically do. It doesn't matter if it's good or bad. I know 3 and 4 generations of police officers, 3 generations of Navy SEALs where the grandfather, the father, and the current son in right now are all team members on such an elite force. And it's not like they had the physical capability to do it. They had the cultural background to do it. And they had the family ties to do it as well. I know black people who, unfortunately, constantly in and out of jail, constantly on the street selling the same stuff. Grandfather, father, and son. And so I started to sit there and think about it. This is another reason why we are not in special operations. So yeah, the test scores is a big one. You still have to score a little bit higher to be in certain special operations. Everyone thinks that, everybody's a bullet sponge, and there's some truth to that. Some people can be a bullet sponge, but most of them are not. And you have to be good at reading comprehension. You have to be good at math. You can't be a sniper, have dope on your scope and not know math at all and just say, I just want to pull the trigger. It's like, okay, buddy, but you're going to need to know how to pull that trigger sometimes on your own. You're going to need to know how to calculate that wind drift, the bullet drop compensation, the Coriolis effect of you are on a moving planet that's moving, you're shooting at a moving target, and then the air is moving your bullet. And you need to calculate all that stuff in and make the best. You got to put the formula in on your ballistic calculator and actually know where to put your holdovers at. That is something that you can't learn just like, you know what, forget it. I'm gonna suck at school, but I want to go be an elite operator. Not happening.
Nope.
All pilots, to me, regardless, and there's a certain level of it. Okay, maybe not all of them. Most pilots, same thing. They are in combat roles for the most part. I think we only have a handful of support pilots, but the majority of our pilots that you see the videos of is not the support guy. It's the combat pilot, the jet pilot who can get shot down. Once again, can't be a complete nut in school and assume that you're going to go do that later in life. Not going to happen. So the fact that you need a decent test score to even qualify to be in the military, let alone for certain special operations groups, will sometimes not even give black people the opportunity to do that. Now, I don't know how many black applicants actually try to get contracts for special operations and just can't because of other barriers. But I do know that regardless of their score, some of us have criminal records as juveniles. So I'm going to get into that. And once again, all of these are not saying this is why all black people aren't in it and, all black people have a record, because we don't. But many of us do. And sometimes the military is your way out. And if you want to get out of of your town, you probably, unfortunately, may have a record to follow you. And because of that record, it doesn't mean that you'll never be able to do it. It means you can't initially join with that type of record. Maybe you need to keep your nose clean in the military for a certain amount of years so they know you take it serious. And because you take it serious, they will take it serious as well and give you an opportunity. But you also have to be able to maintain secret, top secret level clearances. Once again, very hard to do if you have a criminal record. They're not going to say, "Oh, you have all these charges on your record. Here's a top secret clearance." Not going to happen. So yeah, I'm going to get into a lot more of this stuff. I'm going to go ahead and stop this video now. Let me know what you think. I'm going to make a part 2 of this series that's going to pretty much dive straight into the rest of these and why. But in the beginning of this, we already found out kind of what is special operations, the ability to DOR, special pay, special training, special gear, special all that stuff equals special operations for the most part. Let me know what you guys think. Are you in special operations, special forces, special warfare, or not? If you weren't, why not? It doesn't mean, and I'm not talking about everybody, mainly for those military folks who are on the back thinking, scratching their head, or for some of you young cats right now who are considering joining. Yeah, let me know what you guys think about it. Either way, put it down in the comment section below. Hit the subscribe button if you want to see more content like that or to see the part 2 later on. And I'm out. Peace.